9. My name is Edith Fuentes, and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. We have 3 cases today, and relevant exhibits are posted on the panels located directly behind me. Let me just quickly go through our hearing procedure. Under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance shall be granted if 4 required findings are present. 1. That the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance. 2. That there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. 3. That the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located. And 4. That the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. Also, under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a conditional use permit shall be granted if 4 required findings are present. 1. That the proposed use will be consistent with the elements and objectives of the general plan. 2. That the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to the public health or safety, the general welfare, or the environment. 3. That the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. And 4. That adequate public and private facilities will be provided for the use. For applications involving the sale, serving, or consumption of alcoholic beverages, there are also 5 criteria that shall be considered in making the findings. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the criteria just described, then the zoning administrator can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read the description of the application or the request, and then read reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. The case planner will make a brief overview of the case and make a recommendation. The applicant will then be asked to come forward, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and any interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak. Again, clearly stating both name and address within a 3-minute time limit. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments, if desired, in response to testimonies given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will be closed and the case taken under submission. There are some cases which are easy cases, straightforward and clear, and I may be able to issue a decision right here at the public hearing. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. I would like to emphasize that the date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code, The decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from our Building and Safety Section Permit Services Center, located on the same floor of this building. If you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of these speaker forms which have been provided by the front door and submit it to our assistant. I would like to also inform everyone that the official proceedings of the zoning administrator's hearing are recorded on tape as part of public record. Our first case is CUP 2009-016. Location is 411 North Brand Boulevard. This case was continued from the last meeting of November 25, 2009. Applicant is Kevin Aksaki, care of AMAC Group. Owner is Kevin Aksaki, and the case planner is Kevorg. This is an application to renew a conditional use permit to allow the sale, service, and of alcoholic beverage for on-site consumption in conjunction with an existing full-service restaurant located at 411 North Brand Boulevard in the DSP Downtown Specific Plan Gateway District Zone, described as Lot 4, track number 4230. And let me just quickly go through some of the comments we received. From Police Department, although they have no major concerns or issues regarding this application, they wanted to make sure that necessary steps are taken to mitigate homeless camping in the rear, is that alley, patio deck at the back of the properties. From Integrated Waste, applicant must provide adequate recycling containers and way to dispose of items properly. So if you have any questions, contact them. And where is it? Okay. Gevorg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Fuentes. First case for this morning is conditional use permit case number PCUP 2009-016, located at 411 North Brand. The proposal is to allow the sale, service, and on-site consumption of alcoholic beverages with the conjunction of the existing full-service restaurant. Site is located in the DSP Gateway Zone, and this conditional use permit is actually a renewal, request for a renewal. There was a conditional use permit approved in 2004, which expired in 2009, August 31st of 2009. Let's see. As you mentioned, police department had some comments regarding the homeless camping at the back, and they recommended installation of cameras and lighting to mitigate that issue. Overall, staff does not have a problem, since this is a renewal. Staff does not have a problem with the recommendation of approval. However, I would like to bring something to your attention before I make my final recommendation. If you look at the previous decision letter from 2004, condition number 10 says that the subject restaurant shall maintain the that the existing on-site parking spaces shall be maintained at the back of the restaurant where the alley is. Two things. First of all, currently there is a Let me just come out there
Yeah,
to
why
show you.
don't you? I was just going to ask you
Yeah.
that.
Probably easier. Back here, this is where the original proposal had as pavement. There's a tree back here, and this was used for parking and loading and unloading of supplies. Currently, there's a deck back there with tables and chairs, some planters. That was not part of the original condition of approval. And actually, condition number 10 specifically mentions to maintain those. So that is why staff's recommendation of approval says additional condition of adding the lighting and the cameras in the back. That would be in addition to the original condition, which would also include maintaining the paved area at the back. So currently they're using the alley probably to park, which is not allowed. So that's one thing I wanted to bring to your attention and make sure that it is addressed. And the applicant also dropped off a letter. Let me give that to you as well. This letter was dropped off a couple of days ago, actually, requesting to maintain the deck at the back, which would require a parking exception from the agency, probably, if it was to be granted.
I guess we cannot just change the application. I guess my question is this request part of the public notice? Because if it's not part of the public
No,
notice,
it's not. It's not.
You know,
The information I just gave you has been communicated with the applicant, and hence that
so
letter.
basically, the application is just for the renewal,
Renewal of
of
the
the
CUP,
alcoholic beverage.
So staff
and-
recommends or suggests that approving of the conditional use permit should include...
Subject to clearing
subject
up
to the-
this issue.
Clearing up that issue,
Okay.
and probably getting rid of the deck at the back and bring it back to the original
And you're right, this has to go through the
agency.
anyway, so, okay. The outdoor deck or the deck at the rear basically took away so many parking spaces.
Yes, he took away the paved area that was supposed to be striped, and a plan was supposed to be submitted to the ZA,
Yeah,
which was which was actually mentioned in the approval letter from 2004.
maybe the best way to handle this would be for you as the case planner to kind of work with them in going through the agency so we can get this thing cleared up. And for them to be advised what's the proper step to take to maintain that open deck, or if they need to remove it, then we'll find out. As far as I'm concerned, my only issue here today is the renewal of the alcoholic beverage on-site consumption, right?
Correct.
Sales, service, and consumption. Okay. So I'm going to leave that item for you to work with them through the agency.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. To present the case, Mr. Masihi.
Good morning, Ms. Fuentes. My name is Hayward Minas Masihi, and I'm here on behalf of the AMAC Group, and we're representing Gauchos Village, which is on 411 North Brand. And about the parking and the deck in the rear, I would just like to state that none of the customers...
I don't even want you to talk about that. Why don't you talk to me about the renewal of your alcoholic beverage permit or license?
Okay. On behalf of the renewal of the alcoholic beverage consumption and service, it's just a renewal, and all the conditions from the previous renewal are being met. And,
Okay. You're still
we have-
okay with all of the existing conditions?
Yes, we only had the issue about the rear deck with
The maintenance of the parking
The ma-
area.
yes, the rear deck, which the police was concerned, I think it was Officer Hamlin was concerned with homeless people coming and resting. We could provide a fence with a gate and lock it at nights, and to keep the homeless away. If that's
So the more you're restricting access to that paved area, if you're going to fence it.
yes,
See, what I want you to do is work with redevelopment or the agency if they're going to allow you to keep that deck at the rear of the property. If they do, then they can impose whatever conditions they want to impose as far as fencing it, protecting it, or trying to get the homeless out of that area. There's no guarantee that they're going to approve it. So I'm just letting you know you're going to have to work on that. That's a separate issue as far as I'm concerned. Although there's a specific condition number 10,
Which is
that
not-
requires you to maintain that paved area for parking.
I apologize. Condition number 9.
Condition number 9. Okay.
Condition number 9.
So condition number 9, I don't have a copy of the previous decision letters. So condition number 9, you're going to have to meet that too. And if you don't meet that, then one leads to the other one. Clear that up with the agency first before I could issue a decision on the ABC license. Okay, anything else? Like I said, this is just a renewal, and I'm trying to find out if there's anything as far as the previous condition that you cannot meet or don't meet beside condition number 9. Everything else is okay?
Yes, we do meet all of the conditions. Even with the recycling issue, we do have a recycling bin outside. It's located on the map up on the second plan, right beneath the bigger one, top right corner. It should be there. There's a garbage bin and there's a recycling bin next to it.
If I may interject, also condition number 10, condition number 10 states that the operator of the subject restaurant shall maintain a written agreement with the owner of property at 121 West Lexington that provides for free parking for the customers and employees of the subject restaurant.
Okay, do we have a copy of that agreement?
We have never received
Okay,
one.
so we're going to need also that.
So
We will
condition number
provide the
9
copy.
and 10.
Yes, we will provide the copy that states that the customers and the owners could park in the structure when we could get validated.
You just need a copy of whatever agreement you have or lease agreement.
We will provide that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Like I said, we meet all the conditions, and the city is basically okay with it, even with the water, the traffic. We have no issues. I have no police complaints, no complaints with residents or any other businesses around us.
I saw I think 2 reports of
Yeah.
crimes from GPD. Okay.
2 reports in the past year.
Okay.
And
No arrest.
They weren't even alcohol related.
yeah, they're not alcohol related, and
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Let's hear from the owner, Mr. Kevin Aksaki. Morning.
My name is Kevin Aksaki. I'm the owner of Gaucho's Village, 411 North Brand, and I'm here to comment on a couple issues. The police report that shows that they came to visit us a couple times. One, it was for graffiti that we caught people in the act doing, and the other one was from people coming late at night when my people were about to close the restaurant to sleep in the back. The area we're talking about here is. This is my unit and this is my landlord unit. So one
Okay.
guy, what I asked him to do here is the same thing that my landlord did. This was a small parking lot that was 4 here and 4 here on the side, and he created a deck and a patio.
You're going to have to talk to the microphone. We can't pick you
Why
up.
don't you use that screen?
See, they're already calling. He's coming to the microphone.
All right, I'm so sorry. So those 2 buildings exactly the same. What my landlord did, he used the back of his for his employees, and I did
He
the same
already hung
for
up, right?
for my employees, and that it helped a lot on keeping the bums away. The camera has been installed as requested by the police and by my lawyer as well, and sensor lights that has taken care of the issue.
Guess what they're trying to avoid is the homeless people staying in there and creating more problems. So
Yeah, and
work it out with the agency, and I'll let you handle it with them.
And as far as parking, the entire structure, the huge building there, it's all part of that area because it belonged to our landlord as well. So the entire building you see with a few cars on top is where we used to park. So parking has never been a problem for us at that location.
Okay, how long have you been there?
It was 8 years now, September 10,
Wow.
in Gauchos Village.
2001?
Yeah, we started in Americana. We were there for 3 years, and we asked to be relocated by the city for the Caruso
Yes.
deal. And we came to this location. This location is 5 years here and 3 years on Americana area. So we've been in the city for 8 years now.
And your lease with your landlord is for how many more years?
I have 15 more.
15 more.
Yeah, I signed up for 20. I've used 5 so far.
Anything else?
No, that's all. Thank you so much for
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak in support or in opposition to this application? Seeing none. Closing comments, Mr. Gevorg?
Not really, just would like to, again, stress the point of the 2 conditions that haven't been met. And
Yeah. You know, I could have issued the approval
wasn't for
today
those two
if not for the deck issue. So what I want you to do is just go talk to redevelopment agency, and Gevorg is going to help you with that process. Let me know what happens,
definitely.
and we could issue a decision subject to some conditions. So, okay? I'm going to go ahead, take this case under submission, and we'll let you know. Thank you very much for coming. Our next case is Variance 2009-014. Location is 534-538 North Kenwood Street. Applicant is Nakaishi Associates. Owner is Monty Cochran. Case planner is Chris Baxter. This is an application for standards variances to deviate from the zoning code to exceed lot coverage, reduce an interior setback, and a guest parking space dimension does not meet code, reduce the amount of required parking, provide surface parking space garage, and not provide the 25% ground floor area for unit number 6, and not provide direct access to unit number 1, not provide a portion of the 25% landscaping, and not provide all of the required common space, open space, to construct a 5-unit apartment building while preserving the existing 2-story single-family house located at 534-538 North Kenwood in the R1250 high-density residential zone described as lots 3 and 5, Block 6, Livingston Tract. And let me just quickly go through some of the comments. From fire prevention, sprinklers permit, fire sprinklers permit will be required. Obtain water flow data from GFD and pay for testing. They may require hydrant upgrade, provide ladder access to rescue windows, and coordinate location of fire sprinkler riser, FDC, and FA panel. And as far as the existing structure is concerned, they may require you fire sprinklers and permit regardless of valuation threshold. So contact them. And I have a letter from a Serene Bagdasarian. He is counsel for the owner of record for property located at 530 North Kenwood Street. Basically, they are in opposition to the application. Neighborhood Services currently has an existing code enforcement case on this property and wanted to make sure that all those conditions be corrected or be brought up to existing code standards. I'm not going to go through all of them. Engineering. A tract map may be required. Grading and drainage plan is required to be submitted for review and approval. And applicants shall perform street improvements as designated or required by Public Works Engineering. And these improvements are along Kenwood Street and at the alley behind Kenwood. Proposed driveway shall conform to city standards. Method of discharge of on-site drainage shall be approved by the city engineer. And applicants shall contact the city's arborist regarding construction-related work within the drip lines of existing oak trees on site, and removal of any existing street trees or planting of new street trees shall be to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works. Separate permits are required for all work within the public right-of-way, and applicants shall bear all fees for necessary permits and construction. Applicants shall also comply with all NPDES requirements, and additional requirements may apply after the initial submittal of final engineering plans for plans check. Maintenance services, they have some concerns regarding the oak trees and some requirements and suggested conditions. GWP water section. Individual water meters will be required for each residential unit. Backflow prevention devices will be required. Any water service or fire line connection, when no longer needed, must be permanently abandoned. And developer must check with fire regarding the fire flow. Recycled water service will be required for irrigation. And Chris, you're gonna talk or discuss a little bit about this community development and housing letter, or is this not?
Oh, yes, Ms. Fuentes, the community development letter refers to removing people who live in the house.
Right, relocation program.
And so they worked with the applicant on addressing their concerns for that, and I think the memo that you see there shows that the community development staff person contacted the property owner, and the property owner had gone through the proper procedures.
Process, and they're okay.
And they're okay.
Okay. Oh, okay.
That's
all I
that's the
wanted
short
to
of
know.
it. Yes, that's the short of it.
Good. Why don't we go ahead and go through your report?
All right.
Thank you.
Ms. Fuentes and applicants, I'm just going to briefly review through the staff report, and then the applicant, as you know, will come up and speak here, okay, and address your findings and anything in the staff report, too. Okay, Ms. Fuentes, if you look behind you real quick, I'll just dash up here and then dash back. This panel and these panels are our project here. And we decided at the last minute, it's kind of my fault. I decided to put the landscape here for some kind of context. I noticed it said landscape here, but this is actually the planting. So here's our project. Now, actually, let's look here very quickly. We'll see here that there's two properties. We're only able to highlight one, but this is the one that we're trying to preserve right now. And if you look in your photograph right over there, that's the one that you can see the street elevation, and that's the two-story one that we want to save, the city wants to save, and there's the other one is also in that package. Anyway, so we have these two lots right here, and the code allows an applicant to put 15 units on the site. They have been working with the staff, and we've gone back and forth with this project. And at this point, they've decided what we'll do, instead of putting 15 units, we'll put 5 new units, starting over here where the little cursor hand is, and wrap behind over here through the alley, which runs through the back. Oops. And then here's the street over here. So then they're going to keep that one. So we'll have 1 here and 5 wrapping behind it for a total of 6 units.
Okay.
Now, the variances that we're looking at, there are a group of them, but they're rather de minimis, with the exception of the parking one, which we did a lot of analysis on. We talked with traffic engineering. We even talked with some of our staff and here in the planning department who work with parking issues. And so I'll get into that in just a second. So at this point, instead of 15, we have 6 units.
Okay.
We did the city did a survey on historic structures, and this one, the applicant's been working with us to save it, and we have a mitigation measure as part of our environmental, which is part of this package. There's also a mitigation measure to preserve, not preserve, but to remove an oak tree, which is right back in here where that cursor hand is right there. Okay, I think I'll stay away from the key. So let's go back over here. Now, so again, as we're looking in this direction, preserving and wrapping around over here, our alley and our street. The staff actually did our own little survey for 17 properties up and down the street on either side. So when you look here, you can see it's all that high-density multifamily. We kind of went up and down the block within 300 feet. And 80% of the properties are already exceed today's code in terms of density. So that was one of the things that traffic engineering looked at, and they said, 6 units that are going to be short of 4 parking spaces is better than 15 units, even if they met code, because of the intensity of development on the site. So that was one thing. And the other thing staff was looking at is that we've been really working with the applicant and trying to encourage them to preserve this historic structure, or a structure that's eligible for being historic, because it's unique. They've recognized it as being kind of unique, particularly in this area of town. So if we jump ahead to our different code deviations, I mentioned about the instead of 17 parking, to providing 13. Each unit has 2 fully enclosed parking spaces on grade. So, for instance, if these were single-family houses, they would not require more than 2 parking spaces. In fact, the largest unit I believe, is the single-family house that's being preserved. So it's replacing a non-conforming 2-car garage with an existing 2-car garage. So that's one issue. And from the alley, these are the 2-car garage doors. And as you drive in, As you drive in from the alley in here, you have garages here that you can see. I want to get a better sight plan. Oh, here. So you drive in here like that. So each of them have their own two-car garages. The amount of lot coverage, it exceeds, but it's 450 square feet. It diminishes the amount of landscaping by 450 square feet. And the common open space is minus 57 square feet. So we're not talking about a significant amounts of reductions in these. The setback. The one issue of setback, and this again is another issue, it's a legitimate concern, is right here for the guest parking, which can be on grade. And so if you drive in here, there'll be parking in this guest spot right here. Well, this dimension here is not the code required 11.6, I believe I had written down. It is reduced, and it would be against the property line, so it would be a parking space. But it's not a building. The buildings are all set back to meet code or exceed the code in their setbacks. And I believe that pretty much wraps up my presentation, other than the fact that the staff, one last thing, this project will be going to the design review board, and the applicant has been working with our senior architect on design. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to preserve the character. Here it is, and here's kind of what we're going to try to do but it hasn't gone to the board, but it gives us a good feel for what may be out there to kind of complement the existing. That pretty much concludes my presentation.
Staff's recommending
Approval. Yeah, with conditions,
Okay. Good.
including the mitigation measures. From the bottom.
Thank you. Who's going to present the case? Bob Taylor?
Good morning. My name
Morning.
is Bob Taylor. I'm with Nakahishi Associates, located at 2910 West Broadway, City of Los Angeles. I'm going to give you a copy of what
Thank you.
I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. We're going to talk about each of the variance requests. Then we'll talk about the neighbor's opposition, and then we'll discuss briefly the conditions of approval, and then the four findings. And I'll begin. My variance responses to each of the listed requests correspond, so I'll start with number one. Code requires 15 standard parking spaces and 2 guest spaces. Our design provides a private, fully enclosed parking garage for each tenant. The code requires 2.5 spaces per each unit. But what do you do with one half a parking space? So we believe that the parking we're providing, which also meets the requirement for single-family homes, is sufficient. I'd like to mention regarding the guest parking that we're going to be removing the existing driveway on the Kenwood side, and that will free up on-street parking space for one or maybe more parking spaces. We're providing 12 standard spaces and 1 guest parking space. Item number 2, 5-foot minimum interior guest parking setback. As I mentioned, the existing property to the north has a driveway which they use for guest parking, and we're intending to use that same area for our guest parking. So it's not a new condition in that location. We believe because you can drive directly into that parking space, a 10-foot wide parking spot is sufficient. It's not like you're turning into it from a street that's perpendicular to it. Item number 3, maximum 50% lot coverage. The calculation for lot coverage requires that the eaves that are greater than 30 inches deep be included in the calculation for coverage. So that has created a little problem for us because we're trying to maintain that craftsman style, which has eaves that are deeper than 30 inches, and so in doing so, we're being penalized. So that's why we're asking for this exception. Item number 4 is difficult to understand the intent of this code provision. Certainly the code was probably written for a greater density development than what we're providing. And so, again, we'll state that we're providing a separate, private, fully enclosed, on-grade, 2-car garage for each unit, which we believe is more desirable than a shared subterranean parking garage. Item number 5, minimum 25% or 3,750 square feet of landscaping is required. In our calculation for the landscaping, we are restricted to areas that don't meet the length and width dimensions in the code. However, we do have additional planting areas. They're smaller in area, but we believe they're going to provide visual enhancement to the site. So they're not included in the landscape requirement, but they're there. Number 6, minimum 1,200 square feet of common open space. Again, the code restricts the calculation of smaller areas, which we are providing, and they are landscaped. We believe this is going to be more desirable for the tenants. We're also providing private third floor decks for 4 of the 5 units, and the 5th unit will have its own private patio on grade. Now I'll discuss the neighbors' opposition. Theirs is their parking concerns. We believe per each unit, 2 parking spaces is adequate. It is adequate for a single-family residence, and certainly the existing historic house is a single-family residence. How do you divide, if we were to provide the number of spaces required, how do you divide it up, the surplus, among 6 tenants? So we feel that those additional 3 spaces are unnecessary, and we are providing at least 1 additional on-site parking space for possible guest parking on the street. Setbacks, the only setback requirement that we're in violation of is the setback for the guest parking, which is on the north side of the property, away from this neighbor's property. And that doesn't create any health or safety problems for them. Landscaping, we're providing by far more landscaping than our neighbor to the south. We're maintaining the 25-foot setback and providing the fully landscaped front, which is more than the neighbor to the south is providing. The property line that they mentioned in their letter, property line wall that they mentioned in their letter is actually a wood slat fence, which is encroaching 2 inches into my client's property. Now I'll discuss the conditions of approval. We've read and listened to you read the interdepartmental communications from the various departments, and would like to express that only code-required conditions be incorporated into the zoning administrator's record of decision. We have had nothing but trouble with the suggested conditions, as you may recall. Too often these suggested conditions are interpreted by their authors to be mandates once the zoning administrator's decision letter is distributed. Here again, a similar suggested condition appears from the fire department to install fire sprinklers in the historic house. I would like to rebut that by saying that the scope of work for this project does not include any improvements to the existing house. The owner plans to restore this house in the near future. There's a degree of what I want to say is it's a specialized contractor who would be providing the restoration for that house, unlike the rest of the development. Historic houses require more care, more money, more time to provide the improvements. To install fire sprinklers and plumbing for them would destroy the character that the city wishes to preserve. The interior walls and ceilings are made of wood, lath, and plaster construction. What structural consequences would be created by drilling into old lumber that was sized by a very outdated code? Where do you put the fire sprinkler riser? How much of the natural wood casings and moldings will be destroyed by removing the plaster on the walls? How will the front elevation be affected by this fire sprinkler system? And lastly, the installation and maintenance of smoke detectors in the required locations is a better compromise. We would suggest that the wording for the variance conditions of approval, specifically for the fire department conditions, state that all code required improvements to the new construction, excluding the existing historic house, shall comply with the current codes to the satisfaction of the fire chief. The remaining department's comments are not objectionable. We are and have designed our project around the existing oak tree and intend to keep it. And now I'll talk about the findings. When the intent of the code is specifically geared for the higher density development and leaves few exceptions for a smaller density development, we believe this proposed project meets the intent of the code. The exceptional circumstances and conditions, namely the preservation of this historic structure, creates a unique hardship to the full potential development of this property. And the granting of the variance will be beneficial to the public welfare by preserving an historic structure. Granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objections of the ordinance when weighed against the preservation of the historic structure. And lastly, I'd like to say we believe the city will benefit from this development due to the preservation of this historic building. The neighbors will benefit from this development in that it is significantly lower in density than that which is currently allowed by code. There will be no subterranean garage, no dust or noise from the excavation process. The proposed development will preserve the street front setback with landscaping and maintain the character of what was once a single-family neighborhood. Thank you for your consideration. If you have any questions.
Actually, none. I think Chris did a very good analysis of the request. And I'm just going to suggest or recommend, I don't think Doug Nichols or whoever made a comment from fire prevention is aware of the preservation of the historic structure. You may just want to discuss that with him because the fastest way I could do as you're requesting as far as fire prevention's comments concerned is for him to acknowledge that he understood now that you are preserving and doing nothing with the existing structure. Therefore, the suggested condition as far as installing fire sprinklers is moot and no longer needed. That's all I need for the file.
Okay.
And I don't have any, like Chris mentioned, the requests are de minimis. The low density proposed project, a lot of the benefits outweigh the request for the variances. So I will not issue a decision today, but I will just wait to hear from fire prevention, and maybe we can straighten that out and it will clear up that issue.
If I may, because Mr. Taylor brought this to my attention. We talked about it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went next door and spoke with Doug Nichols.
Oh, you already did. Okay.
So what Doug is saying is, and the reality is when our department receives these requests for comments and a site plan, we have to sort of give the big picture comments.
Right.
And so he said, have the applicant any owner, if he wishes, to come by, meet with me personally.
Exactly.
Bring
Yeah.
all the plans, open them up, and let's see if there's another alternative. He says, otherwise, we do like to try to bring non-conforming structures up to code.
Exactly.
But he said, let's talk about it. He said,
That's
but I
why-
don't have all the plans in front of me. I just have the minimal stuff.
That's why he needs to see a little bit more of the plans and give him a little bit more information, and then he can do something with his suggested conditions. Once I include that suggested condition into my decision, it becomes mandatory requirements unless they, back off from the requirement. Okay, so I'll just wait to hear from Fire. Okay, Mr. Monty Cochran.
Good morning. I'm Monty Cochran, owner of the property. First off, I want to thank Mr. Baxter for all of his hard work. We've been working on this for many years, really,
Wow.
with Bob Taylor and Nakaishi Associates. And to give you a little bit more background, these properties were purchased many years ago. I think the 534 property, North Kenwood property, was purchased probably 20, 30 years ago with the purpose of demolishing and then building with the higher density on this property. But then when we found out that the house is historic, built in 1913, of unusual design, the aeroplane Craftsman, which it's the finest example in the city, and I examined the house. I had never really looked at the house too much, figuring it would be demolished. But when I looked at it, I realized that it is a fine example, and it's worthy to be restored. So we scrapped all the plans for the 3-story, 12-unit building. We could build 15, but we ended up at 12, but that was scrapped. And then we started over, and I have to compliment Bob and David Nakaishi for designing a real nice design to complement the aeroplane Craftsman building. That's our main focus. So it will at one point be restored, and the other house will be demolished. I think I don't really have much to say. It seems like most of the focus is on the parking. I think we've discussed that quite a bit with the private garages, and the existing driveway from Kenwood onto the property at 538 North Kenwood will be removed. So when that driveway is removed, it will add another space on the street. I can understand the neighbor being concerned, but a lot of, I think, of what they're concerned about are very minor, like you've mentioned. The fire sprinkler situation does concern me. Regarding the historic house, our goal is to keep that in the original state with probably just modern upgrades of the kitchen and bathrooms. But installing pipes and sprinklers into very old lath and plaster ceilings and walls, to me, would be intrusive. I really don't want to do that. So I see the lights on.
It's okay.
I'm done.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I do agree. It's a good design, and I think the new design really complements and respects the old structure in there. So, is there anybody else here who would like to speak in support or opposition to this application? Seeing none, do you have any closing comments? Okay, Chris, closing comments? Okay, then I'll go ahead, take this case under submission, and we'll let you know. Thank you very much for coming. Our last case is Variance 2009-024. Location is 3624 Rose Lawn Avenue. Applicant is Demery Matthews of Matthews Design. Owners are P and V Hebert, and case planner is Brad Collin. This is an application for standards variance to construct an 871 square foot addition without providing a second covered and enclosed parking space. In addition, this is also to allow the existing first floor to maintain a 1 foot 2 inch non-conforming interior setback for the existing attached garage and maintain the 4 foot non-conforming interior setback for the existing bathroom, where the setbacks required are to be 5 feet for an existing single-family residence located at 3624 Roselawn Avenue in the R1 low-density residential zone described as Lot 8, Block 18, Spar Heights Tract. And just quickly going through the comments. Again, fire prevention, installation of automatic fire sprinkler system, engineering section, method of discharge of all on-site drainage shall be approved by the city engineer, and project shall comply with all NPDES requirements. Separate permits are required for all work within the public right-of-way, and applicant shall bear all fees for the necessary permits and construction inspection. From integrated waste, applicant must comply with the city's construction and demolition waste reduction and recycling plans. Okay. No letters or communications from interested parties. So, Mr. Colin.
Thank you, Ms. Fuentes. As mentioned, the subject project is located at 3624 Roselawn Avenue. This is variance case number PVAR 2009-024. The proposal, as mentioned, is for a 871 square foot addition, which breaks down to 297 square feet on the first floor and 674 square feet as a new second floor. The existing property has what is considered a one-car enclosed parking space. With the proposed addition, it triggers that to become 2 enclosed parking spaces, which is the first request by the applicant to maintain the garage at its current dimensions and location. The second request is a setback request, which is based off of the addition of the second floor. When you have an existing house that will exceed 20 feet in height, it requires the interior yards to have at least a minimum of 5 feet. The existing condition is 1 foot 2 inches, which is the setback adjacent to the attached garage, and on the opposite side of the house, a 4 foot setback for the existing bathroom. The general plan for the subject property is residential low density. The zoning is R1, located in floor area District 2. The subject site is 6,925 square feet. It's an interior lot, currently 1 story, with 1,087 square foot, with an attached 316 square foot 1-car garage. The house was constructed in 1937. Access to the property is taken from Roselawn Avenue. The topography of the lot is flat. The existing non-conforming 1-car garage is located at the front, adjacent to the living room and dining room, and approximately 1 foot 2 inches from the interior property line. There is an unpermitted patio enclosure at the rear of the house, and the applicant is proposing to legalize this area by including it as part of the total floor area for the house. The surrounding properties are all zoned the same, which is your R1 zone, and also developed with single-family residences. The comments that were mentioned from the other departments are comments that can be addressed as part of the plan check process and are not unusual comments or unique to the specific variance request. Staff is recommending approval for the setback variance, but recommending denial of the standards variance. And presented behind you, if you'd like, I can give you a quick tour.
Yes, please.
But we have the site plan for the property. The attached garage is here. I should probably be using rather than my pen. This is the location where the 1 foot 6 inch or 1 foot setback is on this side, and then bathroom location on the opposite side at 4 feet. Got the proposed elevations, what the applicant is asking for, in addition to the existing floor plans. The first floor, second floor up, but we do have those if you'd like to see those. We have the zoning map of the area, as well as location map photos of the property, as well as photos showing vehicles parked inside the garage and the conditions of property with related photographs. Basically concludes staff's presentation. If you have any additional questions, I am available.
Let's walk through. You're recommending denial of the
Standards variance
as far as the
garage.
garage is concerned.
Correct.
And you're saying,
We're recommending approval to maintain
right.
the non-conforming setbacks.
I'm trying to look at the interior layout to see.
You would be
How
looking,
else?
if you were to leave this setback, you'd be looking at bumping the rear of the garage back and the side of the garage over in order to get the code required 20 by 20 dimension. Right now, we are at 15.9 clear on your width, 18.9 clear on your depth.
So you wanted them to reduce the existing living room and the
Dining room in order to get that two-car garage. The area that's being legalized is this area
the one
here,
at the
which
back
was a
there.
patio. Correct. They're legalizing that to become part of the house. And then the second floor addition that's being proposed will meet all the setback requirements, but is located toward the center of the house.
So that's the existing garage?
That's correct. The garage door width is also substandard.
15.9 interior,
Yes.
so
The 13-foot door, if I remember correct. The applicant and the owners are in the audience.
thank you. Mr. Who's going to present the case? Did you fill out one of these?
Emery Matthews.
Demery Matthews? Okay, good. You're not going to speak? I'm already telling you, go fill out. Just make sure your presence is recorded. Yeah. Go ahead, Demery.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Good morning, Ms.
Morning.
My name is Demery Matthews. I'm with Matthews Design, and I am the applicant as well as the designer on this project. And what Mr. Collins already said pretty much lays out the issues. The objective of the project is to take a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house and add a master bedroom. And they'd like to pop that up rather than going back. Because two of the main goals for my clients are to maintain the existing layout of their home and to maintain the large backyard. So that is one of the reasons they want to try and avoid a large amount of demolition and reconfiguration of interior square footage. So relevant to the setback requests, both to the north of the property and to the south of the property, the code intent is virtually met due to the layouts of the neighbors' properties. They have their driveways running in that area. So the buffer is actually more than the intention of the code. It's also non-precedent setting because there are several properties along that street that have this general layout with the garage in front, close to the property line, undersized from what the current code requires, 20 foot by 20 foot. And in the cases of the three properties I took photos of that are within a half a block, they don't have the buffer that this property actually has. Relative to the garage dimensions, interior dimensions, that they can park 2 cars in there. The photo shows that there's a person standing in between the cars, so they can park in there. They can get out of their car. It is tight, however, they're comfortable with it, and it's actually just 3 inches shy. At 15'9", it's 3 inches shy of the 16 feet that is normally or often allowed for non-conforming garages. So the argument is really over 3 inches, and the impact of meeting code is huge. And so I'll talk a little bit about the four findings that you request we address. The first one is really having to do with practical difficulties. And what we did was we went through an exercise of trying to figure out, how to configure the plan to meet code. And what ends up happening is the living room, as you noticed, loses approximately 4'2" if we widen the garage, an additional 4 feet if we scoot the garage over to meet the setback. So in order to reconstitute that space, we have to add on elsewhere and really reconfigure the entire plan. Mm-hmm. There's a domino effect here that happens as well with the setback to the south. If we lop off that 1 foot of the bathroom, we have to remodel and reconfigure a bathroom. The proposed plan, as it is now, to meet their objective of a second floor addition, doesn't really require any demolition to the existing layout. The only area it requires reconfiguring is to get the stair in there. And where we're proposing that is in the same area that we're proposing we bring a non-conforming family room up to code. So, if we receive these variance approvals and can proceed with the project, then they don't have to do really any demolition to their kitchen, their bathroom, any of their living room, dining room. If they go about trying to build a new garage, maybe at the back of the lot, they'd have to lop off, 5 feet of their habitable square footage to get a driveway. That would go right through their kitchen. So these are things that we talked about, and they seem to kind of fall into the category of practical difficulties and hardships for what you're really getting. What do you get? You get a 2-car garage. They actually have a car or a garage that they can park 2 cars in, as demonstrated by the photos. Item B under required findings has to do with exceptional circumstances. This is an attached garage, which makes it unlike the majority of garages in Spar Heights, where perhaps the city asks when you're adding a second story to upsize your garage. That's easier to do if your garage is detached and in the back and you lose a few feet out of your yard. The impact here is much more. You really virtually end up demolishing huge portions of the house and having to reconstitute square footage elsewhere. And that's the domino effect I talked about. Item C is, will it be detrimental to public welfare? No, it will not. This is a single-family home, and their second-story addition does not impact the welfare of the public. Maintaining their garage, which parks 2 cars, does not impact the welfare of the public, nor do the setbacks, in that we do provide, or there is a buffer provided between the subject property and their neighbors. Will will the granting of the variance be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance? And I think I spoke to that, in that the ordinance has basically intent of code, which we believe is being met, both with the setback and the parking requirement of 2 stalls. I did want to clarify that in the square footage proposal, that the second floor addition is really quite small, 674 square feet. That's a master suite, bedroom, bathroom, closets. The rest of that square footage addition is really about taking the non-conforming or the non-permitted family room and rebuilding it to current building code. So that's where that number jumps up a little bit more than what they're doing. I believe that addresses most of what I wanted to say, unless you have questions for me or for my clients.
Did you, well, that's why I wanted to talk to Mr. Herbert.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Peter Herbert. I'm assuming you're in favor of the application, right?
I am,
You
indeed.
forgot to check in favor. Okay. And how long have you owned your property?
We've owned it 6 years.
6 years. How many
4.
live in the house? How did you know I was going to ask that?
Lucky.
Adults?
2 adults, 2 children.
How old are they? The reason I'm asking, I'm trying to look into if they're already driving or if
Oh, no, they're
pretty soon or...
They are 4 and 6.
That's a long time. Okay. Okay. At least 11 years or 9 years, right, to go. Okay.
Maybe longer.
Did you receive any input or any comments from any of your neighbors? Are they aware that you're doing
They are all.
any letter of support or opposition? Nothing?
We do not have anything written. They are all
Okay.
aware. The house directly across the street was added. They added a second floor 3 years ago.
I saw that, yeah.
And we've had neighborhood block parties where we've shared the plans with everybody in the neighborhood. They are all in agreement. The only concern comes from the house to our north, and the street slopes downward to the south. So they did not want the house to be large and to block their light or view or be towering above them. So that was never our intention. We want to keep the house as small as possible, both in size and in appearance from the street. So trying to keep the second floor as small as possible and set back from their property is one of the objectives. They do have the driveway between our house and their house, and again, because the street slopes to the south, it's less of an issue. But they've seen the plans as is and have no issues with it.
Okay. Let's see. I think that's it. Thank you very much. Okay. How about Mrs. Herbert? You want to say something? You can fill this out later on, why don't you? Just give me your name and address for the record.
Vicki Hebert and 3624 Roselawn Avenue, Glendale.
Okay.
And every one of our neighbors that we've talked to agree that this would be a good project for us, and we definitely need the added square footage. And I think it would definitely increase the value of the neighborhood even. So.
Okay, good. Thank you. And you thought you're not going to be speaking, right? Peter. Okay. I'll give you 1 minute.
Thank you.
Now he wants to talk a lot, right?
As Demery mentioned, we've looked at a lot of options for the property, and The two things that make the property somewhat unique in the neighborhood are the relatively unobstructed backyard and the floor plan. Many people comment that the floor plan is desirable and unique, and we would like to maintain the existing floor plan as much as possible. If we had to add, bring the garage conforming, it would take 2 feet out of the dining room and over 4 feet out of the living room. The living room would then be 11 feet by 19 feet and would essentially be more of a hallway than a room. And that the knock-on effects from that, with the objective of having a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, would require a much larger addition. So, in keeping with the goals of the project and in the neighborhood and the concerns from the neighbors to keep the addition as small as possible on the second floor, I think a practical difficulty would be to expanding the garage.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Okay, closing comments, Demery? Okay. How about Brad?
Just a quick thought and a recollection. Staff did meet with one of the neighbors off of Valverde who had concerns regarding on-street parking, speed of vehicles basically coming up from La Crescenta up north toward the street, because the block to the south of Valverde is wider than this particular street, or a block north of it, which is narrower. So there were some concerns about speed of vehicles. If it's determined that the garage is still adequate to allow for 2 cars, then typically, I mean, that would address the parking issue. I just wanted to bring that up. The concerns were more related to on-street parking and to speed of traffic going through that street, and also visibility, but that's more related to the intersection in this specific project. So based off of that, staff's recommendations are still the same. A recommendation to approve the setback variance and to deny the standards variance.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead, take this case under submission, and we'll let you know. Thank you very much for coming. And I'm closing the public hearing at 10:55 a.m. Thank you.